Good evening. I would like to call to order the July 20th, 2020 meeting of the Middletown Township Board of Supervisors. Would everyone please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Tosti, would you please call roll?
Ms. Strauss.
Here.
Ms. Quirple.
Here.
Ms. Payne.
Here.
Mr. Kizak.
Here.
We also have our township manager, our township solicitor, our township engineers, and the department heads.
Thank you, Mr. Tosti. In light of the governor's most recent order regarding COVID-19, we have returned to full virtual with our meeting. This meeting, as with all of our other virtual meetings, is being broadcast on cable channels Verizon 30 and Comcast 22. It's also being live streamed through our website, www.middletownbucks.org, and on our YouTube channel at Middletown Bucks. Members of the public who wish to comment during the public comment section of the meeting or after each agenda item can do so by email at info@middletownbucks.org, by text at 215-995-1249, or by calling 215-750-3842. With that, we will move on to announcements and special items. The next Board of Supervisors meeting will be Monday, August 24th, 2020 at 7 p.m. Next on the agenda are the consent agenda items. They are as follows. Item A, consideration of authorizing payment of July 20, 2020 bill list in the amount of $2,026,932.63. And item B, consideration of approving the June 15th, 2020 minutes of the public meeting of the Middletown Township Board of Supervisors. Ms. Strauss.
I move to approve the consent agenda as read.
Thank you. Mr. Tosti.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Tosti. There's been a motion and a second. Are there any board questions? Are there any questions from the public? Being none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Consent agenda items pass 5-0. Next on the agenda, consideration of the Middletown Avenue minor subdivision. Do we have somebody here for the applicant?
Hold on. We are here. Myself, Carl Machenhaupt, and this is Justin Costello. We are the owners of the property.
Robert Snyder from Kelly and Close Engineers. I was responsible for preparing the plan.
Thank you. Would you like to provide a presentation on the plan?
Give me a brief synopsis. We're here for final approval of the minor subdivision plan for tax parcels 22-44-40 and 41. It's essentially relocating one of the parcel lines to create a buildable lot. April 10th, 2019, they received some zoning variances that were necessary to move the project ahead. We received Township Planning Commission approval July 1st of this year. There was a December 12th Remington and Verdict review letter that we addressed comments and received a updated review on May 29th. At that time, there were 3 remaining comments. 2 of them have been addressed, which were to receive will call letters for water and sewer and to receive an adequacy letter from the Bucks County Conservation District. The only remaining item is for the owners to agree, which they have said they will comply, to sign an O&M agreement with the township. That is the only remaining item from the Remington and Verdict review letter.
Sorry, I was muted. We have Isaac Kessler from Remington and Vernick Engineers, Township Engineer. Mr. Kessler, do you have any comments on the plan?
No, like the applicant mentioned, they've addressed the comments that we had on the letter. We have gotten a copy of those 2 outside agency letters that have satisfied the proposed water and sewer, and also the letter of adequacy from Bucks County Conservation District. I will mention and give credit to the applicant and their engineering. team for addressing the one that we had, that they had a variance that was requested for the proposed building coverage. They worked with the township to adjust that proposed lot to avoid that variance that would have been requested for that. So they've done a stand-up job with working with the township to make sure that they're meeting the ordinances and moving forward with the plan. At this point, we have no further issues with the plans.
Thank you. Do any other board members have questions or comments for the applicant, their engineer, or for Mr. Kessler? And if there are none, I'll accept the motion. Mr. Tosti.
I'll make a motion to authorize or consideration of the Middle Avenue minor subdivision.
Thank you. Is there a second? Yes, Ms. Corporal.
I'll second.
There's been a motion and a second. Are there any board questions at this time? Are there any questions or comments from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Passes 5-0. Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is an update on the Langhorne Yardley Road intersection improvements. And for that, we have, I believe, Don Jacobs, engineer from Traffic Planning and Design. And I believe Mr. Wurster, Phil Wurster, also from Traffic Planning and Design, is here as well.
Yeah, and I'm going to share screens. So hopefully you can all see a slideshow now.
We can.
Yep, looks good.
Phil, did you want to say a few words to start, or you just want me to?
Sure, I will. No, not much. I just wanted to say that we're happy to be in front of you tonight. Don's been leading the charge regarding the design efforts with this project since its inception. We're in kind of the home stretch and thought it'd be a good thing to kind of get out there. I know some of the members of the board have seen this before and some may not have. We're also going to be posting these, if they're not already, on the township website. It's a great project, long needed. Ever since I could remember, back when it was driving by Neshaminy Maple Point High School, this was always a tough intersection. And even now that it's back to a middle school, it's still a tough intersection. So that was the main part of this project. And the one at Bridgetown Pike was a great improvement that was added to the project to really take care of that whole section of Langhorne Yardley Road. So I'm excited to hear this presentation as much as you might be, as much as engineers can be excited.
Turning it over to me, Phil.
Sorry, Don.
Or did you want to say anything more about this
No.
slide before I start in?
No, sorry, Don. Go ahead.
Just to recap the project quickly, this is an overview plan, and the 3 roads involved are all state roads: Langhorne Yardley Road, Bridgetown Pike, and Woodbourne Road. Hopefully you can all see my cursor moving around on the plan. Together, these roads form the southern boundary of the Cork Creek Park, which is in all, the interior, all up in the northern part of this plan. The project area is focused on 2 intersections which are currently signalized: Bridgetown Pike and Langhorne Yardley Road, which is here, and then Langhorne Yardley Road and Woodbourne Road, which is here. The outside of the study area is really conditioned on the improvements associated with these two intersections. And then the interior of the project area also includes a segment of Langhorne Yardley Road between these two intersections. So this section here. The limits on the outside are the limits necessary to improve the two main intersections in the project. The project will, as you can see, the project will involve impacts to Coal Creek Park. For the roundabout, part of the roundabout is on the park property, and also the realignment of Bridgetown Pike to come into the what I'll call the top of the roundabout is within the park property. At Woodbourne Road, the realignment of the road to straighten out the alignment of the two Woodbourne road legs at the intersection with Langhorne Yardley Road is also within the park. There are environmental processes to assess and improve these impacts and a related process to replace the parklands, which I'll discuss a little bit more. For this project, we're fortunate that Middletown Township owns 3 parcels of land within the park, which are these purple rectangles in the upper part of and within the park property, but owned by Middletown Township, currently owned by the township, which the township has agreed to sign over to the owner of the park, which is Bucks County, in return for PennDOT acquiring the right-of-way necessary to complete the transportation improvements. So the ground necessary to build the improvements goes from Bucks County to PennDOT, and then the township replaces that land in the park by transferring these 3 parcels from Middletown Township to Bucks County. The impact to the park is very minimal. There's 1,185 acres in the park total. Less than 1/4% is impacted by these improvements. And really the impact at the end of the day to the park is 0, because there's 1,185 acres at the end of the project as well due to the replacement lands. As currently engineered, there's an almost exact balance between the area PennDOT needs to acquire for the intersection improvements as related to the area of the 3 township parcels, which will be transferred to Bucks County as the replacement lands. So it's worked out very well in that regard. That the way we've submitted this to the agencies, there is no replacement land needed from the Maple Point Middle School property. There was some early coordination with the middle school, and that could, right now we don't think we need it, I guess is the way I'll summarize it. There is a required right-of-way from the Maple Point Middle School associated with the improvements for Langhorne Yardley Road. In general, the proposed improvements have been designed to minimize the project impacts to residents and property owners within the project limits. Virtually any other alternative we looked at for accomplishing the same level of improvements had far more impact on residential properties. Just as a quick example, if we signalize this intersection with left turn lane and right turn lane on Langhorne Yardley Road, we got into far more impacts for residents along this section of Langhorne Yardley Road. You can see with the roundabout alternative, the impact is very limited compared to the widening that would occur under a signalization alternative. Go on to slide 3, which is a close-up of the roundabout. Just would emphasize here the traffic calming that's provided by the roundabout. Circulatory lane of the roundabout is designed for 25 miles an hour. Posted speeds on these roads, Langhorne Yardley Road, 40 miles an hour, Bridgetown Pike, 45 miles an hour. So, and with a signal, you may have people traveling faster to try and quote unquote keep the signal. So the roundabout enforces traffic calming just by the nature of its design. not only the circulatory speed, but the approach designs as well. Pedestrian paths around the roundabout are shown in this blue color. There's an existing trail. It's not a nice paved trail, but it is there. And what we've done is tied into that to go around the roundabout and then extended it up to, I'll call it the west or the north, to intersect, to get to the park entrance with Bridgetown Pike. So it gets the pedestrians from the roundabout to a logical point where it's much easier to continue pedestrian activities. This is an existing trail. Pedestrian accommodations wrap around all sides of the roundabout. Roundabout is required to be lit, and the lighting is designed such that it's focused on the intersection and does not spill out and impact adjacent properties. This is a close-up of the Woodbourne Road intersection. So this is Langhorne Yardley Road, the realignment, which is really to get these legs better aligned, which helps the sight distances, especially for people trying to turn left from Woodbourne Road onto Langhorne Yardley Road. Today, queued vehicles on one leg block sight distances for people trying to spot people coming at them while they're trying to make a left turn. So this is a very significant safety improvement for this intersection. In addition, there will be auxiliary lanes, separate left and right turn lane on the northern leg of Woodbourne Road, separate left turn lanes on the other three approaches. Signal modernization and pedestrian enhancements. Today, I believe all pedestrian movements at this intersection are prohibited. With the improvements, we plan to accommodate pedestrian movements. You can see crosswalks. There'll be ADA compliant curb ramps. There'll be traffic signal, not only for the vehicular traffic, but also for the pedestrian traffic. It's proposed to implement a section of sidewalk from the signalized intersection to Erica Drive, which is in the very bottom here. And then that connects up to existing sidewalk or reconstructed sidewalk that goes along Langhorne Yardley Road to Briggs Road and to a crossing of Langhorne Yardley Road at that point, which goes over to the middle school. Improvement highlights, we've already touched on most of these through looking at the last two slides. The only other points I wanted to make, the bicycle enhancements are largely related. Today, what you have out there is a 10 or 11 foot travel lanes and very minimal paved shoulders. The proposed improvements are 11 foot travel lanes and 5 foot paved shoulders. So it'll be a huge improvement for bicyclists trying to navigate through this project area in terms of the safety of bicycle travel. Stormwater management, we've had 2 meetings with township staff to discuss the design as it relates to township ordinances, Act 167 requirements, and NPDES requirements. One of our upcoming steps is field infiltration testing to determine the ability to manage stormwater in various areas, including areas where utilizing the areas that have been made available due to realignment. So we're looking in this area where Bridgetown Pike is realigned, and we're looking in this area where Woodbourne Road is realigned. In addition, we're looking at township-owned ground near the roundabout, and we're looking at Neshaminy School District-owned ground on the northern side. So stormwater management is a very iterative process and right now we're in the stage where we have to do field testing to see if the areas we'd like to use, what kind of infiltration they're capable of actually doing.
Hey, Don, I think your audio is a little off a little bit, so I'm going to take over these next few sections if you don't mind, and I'll just say next for scrolling. Is that all right?
Sure.
So for the design milestones, you can see what we have here. We started back in August of 2017. It is actually a lot earlier than that, but this is when we had our scoping field view meeting with PennDOT. Prior to that, we tried to switch around funding from another project on Route 213 and Woodbourne Road, which was essentially another lane on 213 that was not needed. So PennDOT, DVRPC, and the township successfully moved the funding over to a much more needed location where we are right now. So that was August of 2017. And then we followed all these federal steps, which are pretty onerous, but something that we need to do when you're getting $8 million of federal and state money. The archaeological resources posting, scoping approval, historic resources posting, safety review, all that kind of stuff is all part of the federal progression that we have to go through on designs like this. We've made steady progress, and we have some major victories with regard to these. There's been no bog turtles found, which would have been a tough hole to crawl out of with regard to their habitat and what we'd have to do to accommodate those little fellows. And also, our historic resources found one resources which is Hammock Villa on the corner we had to stay away from. All worked out fairly well. So we've been cleared with threatened and endangered species. We've successfully got our 4F document signed, and the 6F made our township the parcels. They were eligible for a swapping of land, so that all worked out in our favor. Paths on the property are done by construction easements rather than right-of-way acquisition. Therefore, there's no land swapping that we need to do. And for the public, just so you know, when you're taking ground from a park, you got to replace that ground somewhere else that's contiguous to the park that you're taking it from. And that's why Tom will remember when we met with Maple Point and the superintendent, we thought we were going to have to ask the school district for some property, and thankfully, as of now, we don't. So that was really successful, and everybody really was working together for that. So, and for that matter, Cork Creek Park is really enhanced because of this. Next slide, Don. Our anticipated schedule, the environmental clearance and right-of-way plan approval is going to take about 6 months. That's for everything to be signed and sealed with regard to what the feds and the state think are necessary regarding the right-of-way, and that the environmental stuff that I just spoke about is signed and sealed. At that point, final design begins, which is the easier part of everything. The preliminary design is the harder, and they're just PennDOT terms with regard to design. But then right-of-way acquisition can start to take place. In some locations, we need like 5 feet of widening. We need permanent easements for signs and so forth all along the corridor. So PennDOT's going to be acquiring that right-of-way. And then there's utility relocation and clearance. And we expect a normal right-of-way acquisition with the amount of properties, even though they're very, very small pieces of property, they're generally just strips of ground. It's going to take about 18 months. And then the advertisement will be 4 months after that and letting. So once utilities are cleared, right-of-way is all acquired, it's a pretty quick process to get into construction. We think that should be 15 months. Next slide, Don. Oh, I should say that we anticipate construction to be well underway in 2023. Up until a month or two ago, we thought that PennDOT was still going to push this thing out to 2027. But with county urging and PennDOT local staff urging, this thing has moved up 4 years. So that's a good sign. And that's because the township's putting things in, they're putting their resources into this, and there's a reward for that as far as PennDOT's concerned to kind of make sure that this project gets moved as fast as possible. The township responsibilities, engineering, which you know about, the park replacement plans, that was a home run. I don't know that anybody knew that we really owned those parcels in the middle of the park. So that was really a good thing that we didn't have, there's nothing there. They were old, like, I think, sewer pits or something like that. I'm not sure what it was, but there wasn't anything out there of any value whatsoever other than for more park field. And then the traffic signals will be our responsibility. We're going to lose one traffic signal, so we won't have to maintain that anymore. No more electric, no more signs or pavement markings or anything like that associated with the signal. But there will be a maintenance agreement associated with the roundabout. Whether we have plantings and that sort of thing around it, and the lighting will be our responsibility. Next slide, Don. I'm wrapping up. This has been a great cooperative project. In fact, it's one that we're going to try to get in front of. We've already done it to a degree, but the PSATS convention, if we ever have one again, this would be a great project to talk about what Middletown Township did to get this thing moving forward. This really doesn't happen much anymore in Bucks County, even in the whole region, where a township will put its money up as a local match for such an important project, really on state highways. So it's a tremendous benefit. It's the only way to get these types of projects done. We get left turn lanes where we don't have left turn lanes. We remove conflicts with the roundabout. We're going to reduce accidents tremendously. Our travel time is going to be greatly increased. Going back and forth toward the baseball fields and everything is going to be much, much easier, better sight lines. It's going to be a wonderful project, but it wouldn't have happened without Bucks County's involvement. We've been working with the commissioners and the planning commission on this. The conservation district, the school district was very supportive all through this project, and we're grateful for them. PennDOT's District 6 was very good. The central office people that had to push all the federal paperwork. And then FHWA, DEP, DCNR, big commercial for all the state government and everyone kind of cooperating. Even the U.S. Park Service had to give a final approval of what we were doing out there. So it was really putting all these together just never happened before. This project was originally thought of maybe 25 years ago and could never get done because of the type of hoops you had to jump through. So it's commendable, not really for us, but really for the township and all the agencies that we spoke about that got this thing done. So our next time in front of you should be, we're kind of ready for bid. So it'll be another fun, hopefully it won't be a Zoom meeting, but another fun meeting. So we're happy to answer any questions. I don't know if Don's speaker's working a little bit better. He can answer some, but anything that might happen, and I know you're ready to go. You have a long agenda, so I'll turn it over for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Worsta, and thank you, Mr. Jacobs. We appreciate the update. Certainly, this board is excited about the project and glad to hear all of the milestones that we're hitting. And it's nice to have a timeline, some ideas to where we go from here. So thank you. We appreciate you coming. Do any other board members have questions for Mr. Worsta or Mr. Jacobs?
Yeah, I have a question, Mike. Actually, I think it's more for Stephanie or maybe even Jim, because when we first, well, first let me say this. I'm looking forward to this project with the traffic and everything that hits there around 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock every day, and even going into school at like 8 o'clock if you're headed to school. That'll alleviate a lot of traffic. So I'm really looking forward to this. I think our township needs something like that to get the congestion out of there. So thanks, Phil, for everything you're doing. But the question is, they mentioned in here we didn't have to take the Maple Point land. And I thought last year we went into an agreement already with the school district for that land over there at Maple Point. So would we have to come out of that agreement, or we never finalize that agreement?
We never finalized. We never finalized anything with them, Tom. But you know, as Phil mentioned, they were extremely cooperative. We had a plan ready to go, but we never did finalize it.
Okay, yeah, they were very supportive. That's why. And the other question is for Phil, and I think he answered this. The roundabout itself, the inside of that's township property, and we can do what we want with that, or do we have to submit stuff to the state in order to put anything there?
Well, that's a great question. You have to maintain a sight line, so you can't put too much more than that's going to be above 3 feet tall, because the driver has to be able to see all the way around it. So in other areas, we've been able to put some low shrubbery, flowers, something that is going to clearly not going to sight distance matter. We could do something like that. Other than that, there's really not much else to dress it up.
Yeah, I was kind of looking at the maintenance part of it, because if our guys had to go out there and just cut the grass all the time, it really isn't an ideal situation in a roundabout to pull off the highway and cut that grass. So the shrubbery, stuff like that, where it can be kind of maintenance free, would something that I would be looking at.
Don, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we have right now it's like pavers.
Oh, okay, all right.
So it'll be raised and that sort of thing. So sometimes when you deal with roundabouts, there's garden clubs that want to do that, and the adopt a highway signs that you see. Sometimes people take care of those things. I don't necessarily recommend it. I agree with you that going out there with just regular people to plant flowers and that sort of thing is kind of tough. But that's just the call that the township can make at any point. I think right now we're proposing it to be somewhat rideable. When a fire truck or something else goes around there, we build it so you can take shortcuts. So right now all that is proposed to be paved.
Okay. Thanks, Phil.
Yep.
I just had more of a comment than a question. I want to thank Phil and Don and TPD for all the work you've been doing for literal years on this project. I'm also really excited to see it finally come to fruition, hopefully in my lifetime. But I think this is going to improve the traffic flow so much in the northern end of the township. And I just also want to compliment you for your attention to the sidewalks and the paths. Because the middle school's right there, a lot of the kids around that area are walkers to the middle school across. We have a crossing guard posted right there at Briggs Road. So that's an important crossing area that more kids will maybe feel comfortable walking back to their homes on Strawberry Circle or Erica Drive than do now. I also know when bicyclists are coming up and down Langhorne Yardley Road, if you're trying to give them the full half lane that they're owed, it makes it really challenging. And so I'm hoping that this will improve the pedestrian bicycle flow for everybody that wants to use this area and come recreate at Core Creek Park. And it also fits really nicely with one of our last agenda items, which is the comprehensive plan, where we've really got a lot of focus, not to steal too much of Isaac's thunder, but we've got a big focus on walkability and being able to move around to the various destinations in the township. So thanks. I think this proposal, even though it started years ago, really foreshadowed where this board's trying to take walkability and maneuverability in the township.
Amy, that's a great point. I just want to add one thing. It was a trigger to get PennDOT's attention to allow us to start improvements along Langhorne Yardley Road from this intersection toward the township line in front of the park. So we have plans for crossings and interconnections all along that stretch of road and connecting those neighborhoods to not only the baseball fields across the street from a lot of them, but to the school. A lot of kids play at school, even though they don't want to go there all the time, but they like to play there. And then they get to go over to Core Creek Park as well. So it's really ties a lot together. And PennDOT's really given us a lot of leeway with regard to permitting and that sort of thing here because of what we're doing out
there. Anybody else? Okay, thanks, Phil. Thanks, Don. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody. Be safe.
Okay, next on the agenda is consideration of authorizing award of the 2020 fuel bid. Do we have Mr. Gartenmere? We do.
Good evening. Good evening, board members. Tonight I come before you. We have a fuel bid, which is for unleaded fuel, diesel, and also home heating fuel. Every year we participate in the Bucks County Consortium bid, and this year for the 2020-21 fuel consortium bid, the recommendations that you have in front of you are what we would like to go with. We started this back in May of 2020. They sent out a questionnaire and we fill it all out and try to put down quantities and everything that we pretty much get pretty close. And so this is our recommendation for the fuel bid for this coming year. So for the unleaded fuel is Petroleum Traders, and then we have PACO for home heating fuel, and Riggins is our diesel fuel supplier. So tonight I'm asking you to enter an agreement with these different companies for our fuel for the township.
Thank you, Mr. Gartenmayer. Do any board members have questions? Or if not, I will certainly accept the motion.
I got a quick question. Mr. Gartmeyer, is normal that we have 3 different suppliers for that?
Yes, what happens is when they send out the bids, you may get one company that might bid on 2 of the items. And even though they bid on 2, one might be higher than the other. So we go through that whole list and we pick out which ones are the lowest. And believe it or not, everyone on this list, they switch from year to year, actually.
Yeah.
It seems like they do because last year, Riggins was our part of our fuel, a regular fuel. Now this year, it seems like it's going to be for the diesel. And, so they switch back and forth. It goes by, what the rate is of fuel at the time and when they bid it out.
Okay, I just don't recall going to 3 different, but I understand.
Yeah, it has. Yes.
I move to award the 2020-2021 fuel consortium contract to Petroleum Traders of Fort Wayne, Indiana for unleaded gasoline with an estimated amount of $76,912.50. PAPCO Incorporated of Aston, PA for heating fuel with an estimated amount of $4,168.85 and on an as-needed basis. And Riggins Incorporated of Vineland, New Jersey for low sulfur diesel with an estimated amount of $23,450.
I'll second.
Thank you. There's been a motion and a second. Are there any board questions at this time? Are there any questions from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Gartenmayer.
Thank you.
Mr. Gartenmeyer, can I ask one more question before we let you leave?
Yeah, sure.
It's slightly on topic regarding accepting waste fuel. Does our DPW accept waste fuel? I saw a discussion about this online and just thought maybe you could take this opportunity to educate folks on what the process for that is, if so.
Yeah, so when our one building was built, we have a waste oil heater, which obviously saves us from buying home heating fuel for the one building. So we have a sign out front of our shop, waste oil. The only thing that we do not want is any antifreeze. We cannot do antifreeze. It will not burn. But any kind of kerosene, regular motor oil, transmission fluid, all that stuff we can burn in those heaters. And it is a savings to the township. So if anybody has it, they're more than welcome to stop by. Just come around back. And if you just want to leave it there, you can just leave the containers there if nobody's there. And every day we usually take care of it. Or if somebody's there, they'll be glad to help you if you want your containers back.
Oh, that's great. So they don't even need to make an appointment or anything. Just drop them and go.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's great. Thank you. All right, next on the agenda is consideration of authorizing advertisement of ordinance number 20-04, amending the pension plan. Ms. Tioli-Cools.
Good
This evening, we're requesting the board's authorization to advertise an ordinance that would amend our police pension plan. And it is really a housekeeping item to incorporate changes that were made as part of collective bargaining when we completed the 2020 to 2023 contract with the police union. There were some changes that need to be incorporated into the pension plan. A couple of the highlights are the deferred retirement option plan, or DROP, has been reduced from 8 years to 5 years for all new hires, those hired after January 1, 2020. We included a provision for an age 50 with 20 years of service retirement with a reduced benefit, and we did increase the survivor's benefit. So this ordinance would just incorporate those into the official pension plan.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Ms. Strauss?
I'll make a motion if you like.
Sure.
I move to authorize advertisement and drafting of an ordinance to amend the police pension plan as read.
Second. There's been a motion and a second. Are there any board questions? Seeing none, are there any questions or comments from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you. Next on the agenda is consideration of authorizing advertisement of ordinance number 20-05, anti-discrimination and establishment of Human Relations Commission. Mr. Esposito.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we are requesting tonight that the board authorize advertisement of a proposed ordinance which would set forth anti-discrimination regulations and establish the Middletown Township Human Relations Commission. This ordinance is authorized under the Pennsylvania Human Relations Act, which was established a few years ago, which covers discrimination in employment, housing, public accommodation, and education. It also establishes the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission to enforce the anti-discrimination regulations. The Pennsylvania Human Relations Act authorizes local municipalities to establish their own local human relations commissions so they can then enforce the regulations. One thing that we do change from the Pennsylvania Human Relations Act, most local municipalities will also add sexual orientation and gender identity or expression to the list of discriminated individuals or groups in order to protect the LGBTQ residents. So we have included that in the proposed ordinance in front of you. And also with this ordinance, as the board knows, the township has previously established a disabled persons advisory board. Due to some similarities between the two boards and the proposed commission, Ms. Payne has suggested that we have the Disabled Persons Advisory Board serve dual roles and also become the members of the Township Human Relations Commission if the board were to enact this ordinance. I have prepared the ordinance to do just that. So if anyone has any questions on the act or the commission, I'd be more than happy to answer some.
Thank you, Mr. Esposito. Are there any questions for Mr. Esposito or any comments? Yes, Ms. Payne.
Does the ordinance state how many members have to be a part of it? Or do we get to establish that ourselves?
The board can establish it, but we have established, I have proposed in here 7 members, which was what most municipalities have for the Human Relations Commission and what we already have for the Disabled Persons Advisory Board. So I would recommend that we stick with that number. We have inserted into the proposed ordinance, the Disabled Persons Advisory Board did have a requirement of 3 disabled members. We have kept that requirement in there as more of a recommendation. Highly recommended that we do that, but not a requirement to have 3 disabled members on the board.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? I just want to particularly thank Ms. Payne. You were sort of the driving force behind this. This is something that I think is probably long overdue. It was something we had talked about and just really needed to get off the ground. And it took Ms. Payne sort of spearheading it and making sure it got done. And it was at her suggestion that we incorporate the Human Relations Commission and incorporate this into the Disabled Persons Advisory Board. So those are really great suggestions. And I think this is a great ordinance as it's been composed. So thank you. And if there's no other questions and comments, I will accept a motion.
I'll make a motion. I make a motion to authorize the advertisement of the proposed ordinance to codify by ordinance and regulations related to the Middletown Township Disabled Persons Advisory Board, which were previously established by resolution, and to create the Middletown Township Human Relations Commission pursuant to the Pennsylvania Human Relations Act.
Is there a second? Ms. Corporal.
I'll second.
Thank you. There's been a motion and a second. Are there any board questions? Are there any questions or comments from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Passes 5-0. Thank you. Next on the agenda, consideration of authorizing advertisement of ordinance number 20-06, changing Cabot Boulevard from no parking to no stopping, standing, or parking zone. Mr. Bala.
Good evening, everybody. So Cabot Boulevard, for those who are not familiar, is a cul-de-sac. It connects off of Bristol-Oxford Valley Road, actually through a sliver of Falls Township, and it's near the Route 1 and I-295 interchange. And it's primarily a business park. There's no residents directly on Cabot Boulevard. And really this began, Cabot Boulevard is a no parking zone for the entirety of the cul-de-sac. And this began through partnership with our police department and a few of the businesses on Cabot Boulevard. And the issue was that there were a few businesses there that were causing some vehicles, particularly delivery vehicles, to back up and really creating a nuisance and a hazard for some of the other businesses and other motorists on Cabot Boulevard. And the PD really did a lot of great work mitigating that issue without having to actually change the ordinance. But we are suggesting this change just in case the leadership and management of those businesses changes in the future, and our police has the ability to enforce, the safety of that area as needed in the future. So this comes as a recommendation from the police department, and it was recommended by the Traffic Commission 2 weeks ago. And so we bring it to you for approval tonight for authorization to advertise.
Thank you, Mr. Valla. Are there any questions? Seeing none, I'll accept the motion.
I move to authorize advertisement and drafting an ordinance to change Cabot Boulevard from a no parking to a no stopping, standing, or parking zone.
Thank you, Mr. Tassi.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Are there any board questions? Are there any questions from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Passes 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Ballot.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, consideration of authorizing advertisement of the 2020 handicap ramp bid. Mr. Kessler.
Thank you, Mr. Kuchek. And I'll attempt to share my screen here to provide the locations for this year's handicap ramp program. And to summarize a bit, the area that we're proposing for this year's handicap ramp program is the neighborhood of Georgetown. And it's an area that the program constructed ramps in 2018 in the neighboring neighborhoods. So we had ramps constructed in Sturbridge and Heaton's Mill in 2018. The ramps were designed and bid in 2018 for Georgetown as well. But due to just the number of ramps that we had in that bid package, the budget kind of limited how many we're able to move forward with. And as a result, Georgetown was put on the shelf to revisit at a later time. So there were two goals for this year's program that working with staff we wanted to achieve. One was to revisit these ramps, get these actually put towards construction. And we wanted to do this before this area is expected to be on a road program for milling and repaving, most likely in the next year or two. So we wanted to construct the ramps prior to any paving operations. The second goal was really to have a shovel-ready ramp project to avoid any further delay with having to identify a new area to design and put together construction plans. Working closely with Pat Ennis and the rest of the staff, we feel that it just makes sense to revisit this area. We can move right towards the bidding of these ramps that have already been designed. They need to be revisited just a little bit because they were 2 years on the shelf. But other than that, at this point, we're ready to move towards the advertisement for bidding and to go back to Georgetown to finish these ramps that were designed a little bit ago. So just as a summary, as you see on the exhibit there, the blue circles that are highlighted would be the areas that would be the intersections. There's 15 intersections altogether throughout the neighborhood. It's a total of 48 ramps or corners that would have ramps redone and improves pedestrian safety, as well as just being current with ADA regulations and access ways throughout the neighborhood. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions, and we request that the board authorizes advertisement for this handicap ramp program to be the solicitation to go out for bid.
Thank you, Mr. Kessler. Are there any questions? Seeing none, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
I make a motion to authorize the advertisement to solicit bids for the township's 2020 handicap ramp program.
Thank you. I'll second. There's been a motion and a second. Are there any board questions? Any questions from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Passes 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Kessler.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, consideration of rejecting Middletown Community Park bids for installation of rubberized playground surfacing, installation of the Sutu kick wall, and construction of a concrete slab for the senior fitness equipment. Mr. Copera.
Good evening, everyone. If you recall, back on December 2nd, the board gave permission to authorize approval or permission to put 3 projects out to bid. We call this Phase 2 of Community Park, which is the second half of the DCNR grant. It consisted of the 3 projects, as Mr. Kisak described: the poured in place, the installation of the kick wall, and a construction of a concrete slab, which would then be the house home for the senior fitness equipment. I actually put these, got permission from the board on December 2nd, 2019. I actually posted them on PennBid the day we shut down for COVID-19. So Friday the 13th, they all went out to bid. We opened them up on middle of April and we still didn't know what was going on. So basically we're just getting around to it. So the delay is really a coronavirus delay. Just to give you with this opening, the port in place was unsuccessfully bid for the 3rd time. Neither of this bidder this time did not meet the township's responsible contractor ordinance. The 2 that bid for the installation of the Sutu kick wall, again, did not meet the township's responsible contractor ordinance. And the 3rd, there were 7 bidders for the concrete slab project. The prices were so high, from just under 100,000 to 178,000, that it was way out of the budget price range for this project. So I didn't even look to see if anybody met the responsible contractor or not. So for that reason, we are asking for the rejection of these 3 bids. And then if you have any questions about those 3, but we are looking at, I've been meeting with Mr. Gartenmeyer in the Department of Public Works, as well as Mr. Ennis, to have Department of Public Works do the installation, do the earthwork for the installation of the kick wall. And we'll just bring in some trades, some electricians, one electrician and a playground installer to get that project completed, because we did buy the unit 9 months ago. So it's still sitting around at our warehouse. If nobody has any questions, I would, ask for permission to have all 3 bids rejected.
Thank you, Mr. Copera. Are there any questions for Mr. Copera? And if not, is anyone prepared to make a motion? Mr. Tosti.
I'll move to reject 3 bids for the poured in place playground surfacing, the kick wall installation, and the concrete slab projects at the Middletown Community Park.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Payne. There's been a motion and a second. Are there any board questions? Any questions from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Passes 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Copera.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, consideration of authorizing preparation and advertisements of a Reitz Avenue drainage project bid. Mr. Ennis.
Thank you, Chairman Cusack. Yeah, to give you a little background on Reitz Avenue culvert, I visited the site with the Department of Public Works and noticed there's a 60-inch culvert there, corrugated metal pipe, which is in fair to poor condition. And I'm going to share my screen to show you a picture there. So we noticed when we did our site visit, this is a 60-inch culvert that's about 60 feet in length. It's at the middle of a dead-end, no outlet street with 4 homes on the east side of this culvert. So we were looking to rehabilitate this culvert with new concrete sprayed on lining and repair the embankment that's been eroded away. The budget impact we estimate would be about $60,000 and will be funded by the emergency drainage project allocation of the capital fund. So if the board concurs, the motion would be, I motion to authorize the preparation of the design, bid documents, and advertisement to solicit bids for the rehabilitation of the Reitz Avenue culvert. And if there's any questions, I'll take those now.
Thank you, Mr. Ennis. Are there any questions at this time?
Yeah, I have a question. I thought Reitz Avenue was a paper street.
No, this section comes out of Humeville and continues into Middletown, but it is a township road through this section.
Then I guess I'll have to address it with Mr. Gartmeyer, because I know we don't plow all the way up to the end of Reitz Avenue because it is a dead-end road.
Tom, that was changed probably about 4 years ago.
Okay.
That we went back when Pat Duffy was there. As a matter of fact, Rick was still here, and we went back and researched it, and it wound up that yes, we didn't plow all the way to the end. The homeowner there had asked us, and we actually found out that we do plow all the way to the end, and that is our road, and that's why it was on the paving program that 1 year.
Okay, yeah, that's why I had addressed that with Rick probably about 3 or 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
That's why I was wondering, because I know where this culvert is and that street is, and that's why I was just curious.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Any other questions? If not, I'll accept a motion.
I'll make a motion. I motion to authorize the preparation of the design, bid documents, and the advertisement to solicit bids for the rehabilitation of the Reitz Avenue culvert.
Second.
Thank you. There's been a motion and a second. Are there any board questions? Any questions from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Ennis and Mr. Gartmeyer. Next on the agenda is our Q2 financial report. And for that, we have Ms. Bendari.
Good afternoon. I hope everyone's doing well today. As mentioned, I'm going to go ahead and present our Q2 20 financial and pension presentation. First off, I'm going to actually talk to you about our audit and CAFR for 2019. I just wanted to mention that the audit was completed and the financial statements were submitted to the DCED. The CAFR was also completed and submitted to Emma and for the GFOA Distinguished Budget Presentation Award. Overall, we had a really great year. As you know, we received the AAA credit rating by Moody's. We had almost $1 million in grants for various projects. Our assets exceeded our liabilities by over $78 million, which is $2.4 million better than 2018. Overall, Middletown Township is healthy and has a prosperous outlook. All the board members will get a physical copy mailed to them. They went out today, and we'll also be posting the CAFR on our website post this meeting. Any questions on the audit or CAFR before I move on?
Megan, do you want to share the presentation?
Oh, is it not working? I'm so sorry. Thank you. Can you see it now?
Yep, there it is.
I apologize. Thank you. For some reason, when I clicked it, it didn't work. Okay. So there's your CAFR. Any questions on the CAFR before I move on? Okay. All right. So looking at our revenue expense summary for all of our funds, as you can see, with our bond that we received through the capital reserve, we're showing about 70% in revenue and 34% on the bottom. Overall, if you look at our general fund, we're about at 45%. That's where most of our revenue comes in on top, and about 40% on the bottom in expenses. We are working towards, cutting back on a lot of our expenses to kind of help us work through, the differences between the revenue and expenses to keep at a balance. From a revenue by category perspective, again, looking at all of the funds, here are our numbers overall. As you can see, overall, we're doing pretty okay. Our earned income taxes are at 47% at this point, and our real estate property taxes are about 94%. If you look at our expenses, again, we're trending about 34%. Overall, most of our expenses are on target and actually trending lower as we look to reduce some of the expenses based on the revenue that's incoming. As far as our investments, at this time, we have had an interest income earning of $342,770. As the market shifts, we're seeing a little bit of a reduction in our interest rates. The Financial Advisory Board has been looking at this to kind of decide how we want to move forward as far as, especially if you look at the money market, where we're trending a little bit lower on interest rate. One great perk that we have is that in September of last year, we finalized a 12-month CD with Malvern Bank that was at 2.04%. That's an amazing rate that we were able to keep. That matures in September, so thereafter we're going to have to look at that balance as well. But overall, trending at least a little bit more in the positive. Not as high as last year, but still at least getting some interest in there. As far as pension, we actually had a really, really great quarter. As you can see, we're actually 11% up, as you can see on both the non-uniform and uniform side. So, our investments are looking good. Any questions? Okay. One thing we wanted to do is I'm going to actually turn it over to Stephanie to go in more detail on the financials, especially revenue and the projections moving forward. So I'll move it over to Stephanie.
Thanks, Mega. So, as the board knows, we have been, through the COVID crisis, monitoring revenues very closely. Week by week basis, Mega and I really taking a look at all of our key revenue sources. As across the country, this is uncharted territory. And so, if you just think of some of the things that are impactful to our revenue sources, unemployment, the impact on retail, amusement, transfer of property. And so we've been looking at this a variety of different ways. So we're looking at economic indicators. We're looking at, some standard methods that are recommended for municipalities to project what the impact might be. We also participated with other municipalities in Bucks County. We had a study conducted by ESI. And so all of these things together, the state recommendation, the ESI study, just looking at general economic indicators, and all of the monitoring that we have been doing is going into this next slide that I'm going to show you. And that is, I'm going to show, you want to move it to the next slide? So this gives you all of our key revenue categories. The first column is the budget, and the next column is the projection for 2020. So for real estate property taxes, as Mega already mentioned, we're almost at 100%. So that category for this year is fine. Per capita, also pretty good. Real estate transfer taxes, we budgeted 1.6 million. We're guessing right now about 1.1 million. Again, so much of this is, not just what has happened, but what might happen between now and the end of the year. The EIT is actually better than we would have guessed. Mega just texted me during the meeting. We got this week's numbers. And so for the third week, all the way through the third week of July, we're only about 200,000 lower than where we were this time last year. So this EIT number, could improve a bit. Mercantile taxes, these taxes come in all the way at the end of the year in the third and fourth quarter. And mercantile taxes are the car dealerships in the community really heavily feed into that, but also some of places like Sam's Club, Target, grocery stores. So where we are projecting that we're going to lose some money from the first part of the year on some of the automobile dealers, we had increases in some of those other categories. Local services tax should be close. Amusement tax, again, this is primarily driven by Sesame Place. We do know that they are planning a very gradual reopening. And so we are estimating very low on this because they have already lost May and June and now most of July. So we are estimating a small percentage of revenue. That's related directly to the parking transaction fee that you see on the last line item. Our franchise fee from cable has been going down as people cut the cord with cable companies and start doing television on their own through their smart televisions. And then you'll see fines down a bit. Public safety, police, those are some, we have some impact on some revenues related to Sesame Place, the mall, those places that are, providing fees for services there. Under fire protection permits, because we have basically curtailed all of our fire protection permit fees, we're going to take a pretty big hit there. So the long story short is right now, our estimate for the end of the year 2020 is about 3.5 million. This is the first time we're really talking about this during a public meeting. We've been really careful and thoughtful about the projections. But for the board members, this is the same number we've been messaging for months now. This has been our guess. our guess from the beginning was between 3 and 4 million. So we're refining it, we're fine tuning it. As we head into the budget process, we'll start talking about next year. And we have to live through the third quarter to really get a sense of where this thing is going. There could be significant impact in 2021, but we'll look at that for next year. As far as, what does this mean? Thankfully, Middletown Township, as Mega mentioned with the CAFR in her first slide, we entered into this crisis in a very healthy financial situation. And so this is something that we think that we can withstand. But again, as Mega mentioned, we have been doing everything we can to cut costs. We implemented an early retirement incentive program. We're deferring all sorts of capital projects, all just to be conservative and to be smart. So that's your 6-month update and your projection. I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm sure Mega is as well. So I'll just turn it back to the board.
Sorry. Thank you, Megan and Stephanie. Appreciate you guys putting this together. Obviously, we knew, or at least we believed, that this was going to hurt on some level. It's nice when your projections turn out to be true, and we seem to be along those lines. Obviously, revenue shortfalls are never a good thing, but at least we were prepared for this and have been taking steps to try to absorb it. And as Mega started out by saying, we were fortunate to have been in a really, really good financially sound position when this all came. Are there any questions for either Mega or Stephanie from any members of the board?
Mr. Kizak, just a clarification. So Ms. Pioli, the fire protection permits, you say we're low on that, but we waived that so that the businesses could dine outdoors. Are they the permits that we waived for that?
So there were two things that we did as businesses started to reopen. The first thing is the board authorized waiving fees for permits related to outdoor dining and tenting. In addition to that, as businesses were just reopening, we didn't feel like going out to do an annual fire inspection and burdening the businesses with those fees might be the best thing to do at that time. So we are, we will, we're still interacting with folks. The way that we were able to still fulfill our obligation to make sure that places are safe is the fire marshal's office has been interacting with the businesses and doing sort of a self-survey. And, we'll talk about it at budget time, but we would suggest that we get back to doing those permits and those inspections again in 2021. The other thing is our fire marshal staff during the entire COVID crisis was supporting the emergency management function. So we weren't doing them during the crisis, and the idea of going and hitting the businesses with them right away was something that we thought we might just defer until 2021.
Yeah, that's what I thought, that we just didn't want to put the burden back on the small businesses when they came out, and the township figured they would take the hit. That's what I thought. Thanks.
Any other questions? Well, thank you both then. We appreciate the update. Can Mega unshare her screen? There we go. Thank you. Next on the agenda is the Middletown Township Comprehensive Plan presentation. And for that, once again, Mr. Kessler.
Thank you, Mr. Kachek. I'll share my screen as well. I'll try to multitask a little better than last time I was on here. Here we are. So thank you again, and we appreciate the opportunity to present the comprehensive plan. That really was a process that started in April of 2019. It's been an ongoing process. We've worked with different areas of township staff. We've worked with residents that made up a steering committee that really guided us through the process. And we had public events throughout the way that really from the outset was a goal to have this be a comprehensive plan that was a document that was from the township and represented the input of the residents and all different aspects of the township, compared to some of the old styles of comprehensive plans where that they were awarded to a consultant that would put something together from data, present it to the township, and kind of put it on the township of things they should do, not necessarily getting a lot of input along the way besides just the data they collected. So this really was a more modern way of doing it. We'll go into a little bit more of what that meant, but it's a document we're very proud to say got a lot of input and direction from folks throughout the township through different events. I wanted to just acknowledge a couple of folks that were on that steering committee, and that was made up of, like I mentioned, really a cross-section of the township. We think they did a fantastic job. Donna Fiedler, Rich Nuttall, Jim Merrill, Jonathan Lippy, Bill Appleton, Lil Schoenwolf, and Lisa Kelly. Just acknowledge their efforts. A volunteer committee that was put together to help us throughout the way. We had a few meetings at different important stages, and they did a fantastic job of really directing where this was headed to have the document that's in front of you tonight. We also had meetings with the department heads at times to get their direction and feedback, township staff, and of course the support of the board for this document to be put together really was a culmination of a group effort. So with that tonight, we didn't want to go through page by page of the document, obviously, but wanted to give you the highlighted goals and strategies that have created this comprehensive plan to be used as a tool for the township over the next 5 to 10 years to accomplish some main goals and direction that we want to see the township head over that time. So with me tonight is Ashton Jones. He's the professional planner that was part of our team with as Remington Burnick engineers. I'll acknowledge we had a team of folks working on our end as well, as in addition to that, Randy Waltermeyer and Louis Huffnagel of TPD. And we thought it best, really, we teamed up with them as the township traffic engineers to tackle some of the transportation important items that make up this plan, because we wanted to have really the folks that were most familiar with this township, us as your township engineer, TPD as the traffic engineer, to put together the best plan that we could for you tonight. So with that, I'll turn it over to Ashton to provide a bit of history of how we came about to tonight, and we'll go over the highlights for you this evening. Ashton?
Hello, board. So just to quickly explain, so a traditional comprehensive plan, which is actually what Middletown had previously, lays out facts, looks at census data, and then compiles that to sort of provide an overview of on-the-ground information. So a lot of times it's a summary of what is happening at the time that the census is taken. Sort of the new strategy, this implementable comprehensive plan, is to engage the public, get feedback on what citizens think the issues are, and then formulate strategies to actually attack those issues and how to address them moving forward. Like I said, it's sort of looking forward versus sort of static on the ground. So many times in the past, the comprehensive plan gets done, adopted, and then sort of sits on a shelf. And we hope that this one is active and not static and moves forward with you all as times change. Next slide, Isaac. So the key facts are you want to focus on real relevant issues. You want to organize the plan in such a way that people can pick it up and read it and understand it. Again, like I said, a lot of times just summarizing and regurgitating statistics, it gets heavy-handed and people lose interest quickly. You want practical and workable recommendations so that people can, again, open it up and say, okay, I have this goal. How do I achieve it? Here's sort of the steps that I need to take to achieve it. You definitely need to recruit everyone. Obviously, just starting the process, I think we did a great job of recruiting citizens, specific township officials. but that can continue going forward, interacting with the county, so on. You want community ownership. So we had 2 meetings. I'll actually get into the details in subsequent slides, but Isaac, next slide. So here's the public participation. So we had, I want to say, 6 steering committee meetings and then 2 public meetings. The first public meet, so the steering committee met, we then determined what the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats to the township would be. What the purpose of that was, it helped to sort of guide narrow our focus so that when we go to the public, we can say, this is what we understand some of the issues to be, so that it's not just a broad spectrum of everything. So through that strengths, weakness study, we determined, or we developed 4 key sections, which eventually became the chapters. So that's redevelopment and housing, transportation, recreation, and sustainability. Those were the topics that the steering committee thought appropriate. We then went to the public for our first committee, and we had 4 boards. Actually, at the time, we had 5 boards because we later combined redevelopment and housing. But regardless, we had boards across, and people just came up and said their concerns, their issues. We then, as you can see actually in the image, those little dots are where people put issues and then indicated with text what those issues were, so that we could then categorize and correlate and say, okay, here's all the concerns we heard. We then went back, took that information, developed the document in more detail with input from the steering committee, and then ultimately the second presentation we had was more of an unveiling, so to speak. Next slide. So the first topic that we're going to discuss is, and again, these were, if you had an opportunity to go through the plan, these are in essence the chapters of the plan. So redevelopment and housing. So we developed goals with the steering committee and coming out of input from the public hearings that we had, the public open houses that we had. So these general goals, and I should state that even the old comprehensive plans, they usually always had goals, but that's about where the level of detail ended. And these goals were very grandiose, saying, for example, let's make Middletown the best place in America. So we tried to be more focused and more detailed and go from there. So for example, we developed a goal of providing housing that's affordable and near amenities, utilizing smart growth principles in both redevelopment and new projects, and then revitalizing areas to create new business and employment opportunities. I'll get into a little detail on some of these in the next slide. Isaac, yep, thank you. So some of the strategies that then came out of these goals are trying to figure out ways of adaptive reuse of buildings. That's where you have a building that might be vacant, finding a new use for it. I know from some meetings I was at recently, someone recently was trying to take, Isaac could probably add later in, but they were trying to take an abandoned use and put in a car wash, for example. I'm not saying that's what we should be doing, but that's the concept that it's driving. Infill development and increased density in commercial corridors and around transit. This is just saying, okay, you have, say, large swaths of parking. Where might you be able to get some additional uses in there to bring ratables, and then even to help out that existing use by adding more traffic and more usage for people utilizing that site. Some examples of that might be the redevelopment of the mall. Mixed use development, I think that also could be the mall. We're showing a picture here from Newtown Township, which obviously is not your township, but right next door. This is a shopping center which was redeveloped, and again, it has a mix of apartments above, residential down, or commercial down below, pardon me. Rezoning of underutilized commercial districts. This would really be just an analysis of looking at sort of what's on the ground. Is it being utilized? How might tweaking, say, the permitted uses? How might creating a new zone facilitate further redevelopment? Again, we talked about keeping housing affordable. That's just trying to get a range of new construction, be that both sort of the typical name of affordable, but then also, market rate, workforce housing, and of course, luxury, just trying to maintain a range. And then tax and funding incentives, there are numerous options out there. Both the county and the state can provide funds via grant. There's other funds from federal governments for brownfield redevelopment, things like this. Again, just trying to give the town the tools to utilize and think outside the box in order to try and advance its future. Isaac?
Thanks, Ashton. To go into the second chapter topic of transportation goals, again, as mentioned, we work with traffic planning and design to help mold this one. And the goals that really came about from the feedback we got and are pretty generally understood would be providing safe and convenient routes for pedestrians and bicyclists, enhancing connections between neighborhoods and businesses, and improving traffic circulation in heavy traveled areas. And as Ms. Strauss mentioned earlier in the meeting with our presentation on the intersection improvements, that those are the kind of projects that we know these areas that are identified that have issues. There's projects that come along that when the timing is right, we can move and address these kinds of things. And with grants that are available to have a current implementable comprehensive plan really just greatly improves your opportunities to take advantage of those kinds of grants. When the grant agencies see that you have it as part of your overall goals of the township to achieve these kind of projects, and that's the direction you're moving, it just makes the application for those types of funding opportunities that much greater to have them know you're taking it seriously and it's part of a greater plan to improve the area. So the strategies mentioned in the pedestrian and bicycle connections, this is a common thread that really kind of goes between all the chapters of the comprehensive plan. It's something that the feedback we got was not only that we have these amenities, these great amenities in the township, but just the ability to access those by other means besides hopping in your car and driving there. And this was issues for, it was brought forth by the younger population, if they're school age, using their bicycles, people that just enjoy walking places rather than having to hop in the car. And also it was interesting to hear the feedback from the more senior population that if they don't have a car anymore or they're in their neighborhood, those access to amenities that could be improved is something that just having an improved, upgraded network of pedestrian bicycle connections really helps the cross-section of the township. There's pilot traffic calming measures. That roundabout mentioned earlier is a great example of a traffic calming measure. That's a great implementable approach to that intersection. And I mentioned the nearby amenities, so improving those connections. We have our train stations in the township that we know about have issues. Woodbourne Station obviously is a congestion hotspot, and having the comprehensive plan, as I mentioned, really kind of give an outline of how to possibly address those areas when funding opportunities come along. We have that leg up to really show those agencies we're ready to move on something like that. The third chapter of recreation goals, I'll mention that the feedback that we received really wasn't that we were lacking amount of parks. People were very happy with the amounts of park and recreation throughout the township. It came down again to the common thread we heard of just that accessibility to these spots. So whether it's adding, a half a mile of sidewalk to connect a neighborhood to a nearby park where there currently isn't one, those are the kinds of things that were identified as some of it low-hanging fruit. Other ones were projects that could be the strategies to address and connect these areas and really improve the overall network throughout the township. One of the goals we had as well was investing in existing parks and recreational sites. And again, inside the parks, improving the walkability and bikeability. The strategies with this chapter really is working closely with the Bucks County Greenway Planning. They have a robust kind of outlook as well, their comprehensive plan. And our plan really supports a lot of what they have in place over the next 5-10 years, and it's a collaborative effort there in coordination with the county for a lot of that kind of work. Just as a point, with the Court Creek Park area, obviously there's close coordination with the county. Upgrading the parks and recreation facilities that need a little facelift to make sure we have those amenities in different neighborhoods throughout the township. And then increasing the opportunity of utilizing open space outside parks and recreational systems. So areas that the township could utilize for events that may not just be in an actual park, but just open space that we have to utilize for all the neighborhoods. And our last of the 4 chapters identified is sustainability. And for these goals, it's not just sustainability, obviously with stormwater, but it's also the day-to-day life and quality of life of folks and residents in the township. So whether it be developing attractive community gateways, promoting greater energy efficiency, these are the goals that came out of our efforts to put together the sustainability chapter. And the strategy is really is almost as the township leading the way here. It's to have the township lead the way with any kind of solar or electric vehicle type of opportunities, and have that available for residents throughout the township. Creating attractive gateways at key entry points, whether it be a landscaped area, just similar to the effort we've made recently with signs to neighborhoods, just to improve the gateways and visual aspects of the township, goes a long way. It promotes that day-to-day improvement of folks that work and reside in the township, and leads to opportunities that we have to enhance the environmental aspects, the streams, waterways, things that people use in the township, to make sure they're in good shape for years to come. So as mentioned, this is really a kind of a high-level summary of the main goals and strategies. That is the comprehensive plan. I mentioned it's been a year or so of effort with different groups and input. So the document itself is a good thick document, but it really identifies the work that went into it to hopefully be a great tool for the township going forward over the next 5-10 years. Those key issues we identified: transportation, redevelopment, housing, recreation, and sustainability. Really addressing those issues as a collaborative effort and having those strategies identified. So this is a usable document, and it doesn't become something that collects dust. It's something that the Planning Commission can lean on when things come before it, if they have to make a decision on sidewalk connections and things of that nature. They can point to the comprehensive plan and say, we need you to put in this sidewalk because we have an overall goal to have more connections around this township, where previously there may have been a bit of a uncertainty about which direction to take that kind of thing. And just to touch upon the project schedule, here's really the full schedule of where we started to where we are tonight. You can see our steering committee meetings throughout the way, as well as our public outreach meetings. And then some of the more specifics on the design side of what took place. And we were in front of the Planning Commission on July 1st, presented a similar slideshow and discussed the comprehensive plan with them. And they were very pleased with what they heard, recommended moving forward and bringing this to you here tonight. And I'll mention as well, we have shared this with all the neighboring municipalities. It's shared with the county, the school district, and we have received feedback that they've offered to incorporate in the plan as well. So tonight, we'd be happy to answer any questions. What we're requesting this evening is to authorize advertisement for the hearing to be held at the next Board of Supervisors meeting for adoption of the comprehensive plan. So that would be advertised, and a hearing would take place to formally adopt the plan to put it in place moving forward. So with that, we'd be happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Thank you, Mr. Kessler. Thank you, Mr. Jones. We appreciate the update and the presentation of the comprehensive plan. A lot of thoughtful work went into this by a lot of people. And so certainly on behalf of the township, we thank everybody. Do any of the other board members have questions for either Mr. Kessler or Mr. Jones, or have comments on the plan?
I'll just
thank you all for an incredible amount of work, and especially thank the residents who volunteered to serve on the steering committee. I think every time we get our residents involved in the decision making of the township, we end up with a better result. And this is just a great example of the way that we can convene people and make sure that the decisions we're making as a board really reflect what people in Middletown Township actually want. So thank you to those residents, and thank you to Remington Burnick and TPD and everybody else, everybody from the township staff that put a lot of time into this plan. I think when you look at a comprehensive plan like this, the importance of it to me is underscored in a year like this where we're needing to be really cautious and we're having to make tough decisions about which projects to go forward with and make sure that we're being financially responsible. It's easy when you have all the money in the world to do every project that comes your way, but you have to be incredibly disciplined when you're trying to be financially responsible, as we are, especially this year. And this plan is going to be a key guidepost for us all along the way as we're deciding which projects to go forward with and which projects to postpone. So I think the timing couldn't be better. I really just am amazed at the amount of work that went into this, and also very thankful that we were able to do this primarily with grant money, which always helps any project go forward. So thank everybody very much.
And Ms. Strauss actually deserves a lot of credit because she was one of the driving forces behind the comprehensive plan and played a very active role in getting this thing off the ground and putting it together. So thank you for getting behind this. Any other questions for Mr. Kessler or Mr. Jones? Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Authorize
I apologize. We need a motion. That's right.
I'll move to authorize the advertisement of the comprehensive plan.
I'll
Second. There's been a motion and a second. Are there any board questions? Are there any questions or comments from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Okay, I'm going to go slightly out of order. We've got other business next. I'm going to do public comment first because we do have a number of comments from the public tonight. I'll do them. The first group of comments I'll put together. These all concern the decision by Sesame Place to open this season. The first is from, let's see, Robin Bertel. Please consider this an official comment for the Board of Supervisors meeting regarding the opening of Sesame Place. It is not safe to open an amusement park during the pandemic. I do not think Sesame Place will be able to enforce people wearing masks, distancing, and sanitizing all the services that visitors would touch. I'm further concerned about tourists coming from out of state, bringing COVID to our local community and causing outbreaks. Please do not allow Sesame Place to open. Sincerely, Robert Bertel. The next is from Colleen Skarinsky. She notes that she's Middletown resident, mother of 2, ages 5 and 9. Dear board members, I oppose the opening of Sesame Place this summer. With the very young age of its key audience, there is no way to control social distancing in that situation. The business opening will possibly cause a spike in our immediate area and possibly spread the virus to others surrounding states as people travel to and from their home towns and states. Please consider mandating this business to wait until a later date to open to help control the spread of COVID-19 in our town and surrounding areas. This one is from Ron Cosenza. He says, I am a citizen of Middletown Township. I live in Langhorne. I am 100% behind the opening of Sesame and any other business. Thank you. The next is from Christy Cochran, 510 Humeville Road in Langhorne. Hello, I am writing to provide my comment for tonight's meeting. I want to know why Sesame is being opened despite the new rules set by our governor for less than 250 person gatherings. Sesame refuses to announce their capacity limits, which are outrageous during a normal season, so even 50% would still be very crowded, and refuses to refund season pass members. I strongly disagree with the opening as it will bring many people from out of the area to our community. I also don't feel like their opening guidelines are in line with general recommendations. Parentheses, no masks on water slides, water rides, relaxation areas with no masks, rides with seating is not spaced 6 feet apart. Please comment on what is being done about this opening and how it is being allowed. I cannot understand why a theme park is allowed to operate, but in-person school is in danger of not happening. Next is from Brianna Newton, 914 Woodvale Avenue in Langhorne. To whom it may concern, as a concerned mom of 3, longtime Sesame Place member and Langhorne resident, I'm begging you to reconsider the decision to open Sesame Place up this week. I would like to think the township has at least some sway in the decision making there. Have you not considered the thousands of visitors who will be coming from out of town, possibly from COVID-19 hotspots, who will be bringing their germs with them? Have you not considered that these thousands of visitors will not only be at Sesame Place, but will also utilizing local hotels, restaurants, putting all of us at risk of getting sick? Have you not considered what it would look like for Middletown Township to become the next coronavirus epicenter? Businesses shut down, hospitals overrun, lives lost, all for what? The choice to open Sesame Place back up to the public is the epitome of capitalistic selfishness. Keep it closed, protect our families, protect our babies, protect our residents. The next one is from Sandy DiBernardino, 104 West Fairview Avenue in Langhorne. Good morning. I would like to express my opposition of allowing Sesame Place to open this season. Doing so poses an unnecessary risk to the health of our community. There's no way to ensure that those who are traveling from out of town have followed safety guidelines for their area. There is no way to ensure social distancing. It's not realistic to expect that employees will clean effectively. Furthermore, visitors of Sesame Place will patronize other local businesses, further spreading germs unnecessarily. Sesame Place is not an essential business, and I think it's more than reasonable that they may remain closed for that reason. Those are the emails. There's also, we received some text messages during the meeting. Let's see, this one is from Margaret Ward, 1104 Harper's Crossing in Langhorne. Sesame Place should not be reopening during a pandemic. SeaWorld doesn't need the money. As a former employee, I can tell you how horrible the guests behave. They allow children to pee everywhere. How can we expect them to wear masks? This will bring tourists to our area who will only cause more problems. And then we have one from James Ward, 1204 Harper's Crossing in Langhorne. Allowing Sesame Place to open during an epidemic would be irresponsible. No one will be properly quarantining when visiting or returning home. And I believe that is all the Sesame Place emails. So, I'll obviously let each board member comment to the extent they want to. Ms. Tealy-Cools, do you just want to comment briefly on us being informed from Sesame Place about their decision to open for the season?
Sure. I think probably first and foremost, the board doesn't really have any ability to do anything with this. The good news is that Sesame Place has been in real close communication with us, and they have assured us of protocols that they are going to have in place. They have capacity limits, they have social distancing, there's going to be masking required. And they have actually offered for the Board of Supervisors to come and have a tour to see what they are planning for their opening. So if any board members are interested, I can help arrange that.
Mike, your volume is really low for some reason, all of a sudden. Maybe you switched audio inputs?
Is that better? Is that better?
Mike, why don't you mute yourself and then unmute yourself?
Nothing? How's that?
Sounds good. We heard you.
It's better?
You're good.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry about that. So what I was just sort of, I think, reaffirming Ms. Tioli-Cool's initial point, which that is, as a municipality, there's a limit to what we can do, and really, we really don't have the ability to tell a single business that they are unable to open. Obviously, there are guidelines that are put in effect by the state, and they'll have to comply with whatever those guidelines are, as will any other business in the township. I'm glad to hear that they are communicating with us and that they do have guidelines and protocols that are going to be implemented, and that they'll be sharing those with us. And again, if it wasn't heard, to the residents who commented, certainly we understand and appreciate and share your concerns about COVID-19 and its impact on our community. We take it very seriously, but as Ms. Tioli-Cool said, we really don't, as a board of supervisors, don't have a lot of authority over Sesame Place's decision. Do any other board members want to comment on this at all?
I'll just say, I mean, I was going to ask, but Ms. Tioli explained it, that we don't have a say in this. We can't do anything. But I do understand their concerns with residents coming from out of the state and out of the area and coming into our township, and particularly using the establishments, whether it's the hotel or places to eat. I definitely hear their concerns, but I can tell you, I've eaten at a couple different places here in Middletown, and it seems like all the establishments that we have here in Middletown have been following the guidelines really, really well. So I hope they will continue to do that around this Sesame Place opening.
I guess I have more of a question more so than a comment, but I know one of the residents had asked how many people Sesame Place was going to let in, and Sesame Place said it's going to be kind of like by reservation only. I don't know if that's some kind of information that we could get from them that we could then relay to residents, like, you know, via Facebook or whatever, to just try and give folks some of the answers to some of the questions and maybe ease some of the concerns, since we don't have any control. Maybe information sharing is something we could definitely do to try and maybe help people understand like how many people they are going to be letting in, you know, with the 250 guideline outside and whatnot.
I'm happy to share the information. Kathy Valeriano sent the email today basically saying they're going to be opening Friday to Sunday, starting this Friday. The operating hours are just for those 3 days. They do hope to add more, but they did send us a link that we could publish on our Facebook page, which talks about all of their enhanced safety efforts. So I'll make sure that we do that.
Thank you. Anyone else on this topic?
I'm just wondering, so if somebody, one of their employees got COVID, or they were aware of somebody that got COVID that was visiting the park, would they need to then publicize that and let the public know? I guess that's questions for Stephanie.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can certainly check. I mean, this is all really governed by the health department. I can find out how the health department would handle that. And, you know, we could try to incorporate that into whatever we're messaging. I'm glad to do that.
Yeah, I think the answer is they have to do what any other business would have to do as far as whatever the county and state departments of health require. You know, off the top of my head, I don't know what that is. But, you know, I think it's a worthwhile conversation to have. It's important that we're involved and that we're aware of what exactly they're doing. They clearly have some protocols, and they've offered to let us, you know, in the loop on them. And I do see that they have published on their website information about their safety efforts. So if members of the public want to go there, we will share the web address so that people can go and see for themselves. And obviously, if they have additional concerns, you're always welcome to come back and raise them before this board. Okay. We do have some other comments on other issues. There is one from Greg Johnson, 1265 Old Lincoln Highway in Langhorne. He asks what it would take to have a traffic device installed on Old Lincoln Highway. There's also a speeding problem on Old Lincoln Highway. So first and foremost, Mr. Johnson, what you can certainly do is bring your concern to our Citizens Traffic Commission, and we can get you some information on how to reach them. But there is information on our township website how to make a request to the Citizens Traffic Commission about a traffic issue. And so that's the first place to start. What we can also do is what we generally try to do with all public comments about issues like this is between now and the next public meeting, we'll try to have township staff look into the issue, and to the extent we can provide information to you, we will. And if we can report back on it at the next meeting, we'll certainly do that. Do any board members or any township staff have anything they want to say about this particular issue on Old Lincoln Highway?
Mike, if you don't mind, I do sit on those traffic committee meetings also, Nick also. That was addressed a while ago. The police went out and did a study. We did put out the speed indicator. The police wanted it out there. And they did timing of the cars during school hours, non-school hours, when school was in session, obviously, before the COVID and everything. It has been looked at. I mean, it always can be revisited again. But there was a study done previous, I believe it has in the past year.
And so I assume then that the results of that study were that it didn't warrant putting any sort of a traffic device there.
Not at that time, no.
Okay.
That I recall.
Okay.
Thank you.
You know whether or not this gentleman was the one who brought it before the traffic commission?
I'm not aware. I don't remember that.
Okay. Well, then I would encourage this resident, certainly you can bring it to the traffic commission again. If there's any new information or evidence that, bears revisiting, that can certainly happen. But sounds like this issue was thoroughly researched and in fact, fairly recently. Mr. Valla, you're a member of the traffic commission. Anything additional to add?
I was just going to say, I'll make sure that we reach out to him to see if we get his issue resolved or followed up on.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, and then I see one more comment. Let's see, it concludes a number of issues, actually. This is from Susan and David Coleman, 39 Dolphin Road in Levittown. This is by email. Below are several questions and issues that my husband and I have regarding our township codes, regulations, and operations. I've been a resident in Middletown for more than 30 years. Number one, first, we would like to thank the local police for their efforts on July 4th and the days preceding and following that day. We had a ridiculous number of residents around us in Deepdale West, Sycamore Ridge, Deepdale East, and Highland Park setting off fireworks in close residential areas. Question, what is being done to quell this in the future for the sake of those veterans with PTSD, for the dogs, cats, and horses that are noise phobic? What is being done by the township to prevent this in the future? And is the township contacting the sellers of fireworks, instructing them to inform the purchasers that they cannot legally discharge fireworks virtually anywhere in the township, and the legal consequences if they do? I'll just briefly comment that because we've commented on this a lot. We've taken a number of steps this year and every year, including a lot of public messaging about our ordinance, which essentially restricts setting off fireworks from any residential or public property in the township. We also have increased police patrols, having an extra dedicated officer to fireworks calls. And so this is obviously something that we're aware of and have been dealing with for a couple of years now, ever since the state changed its law regarding fireworks. And we're doing our best to enforce our own laws, which again, prohibit fireworks from essentially any residential or public property in the township. Number two, next is a question regarding the continuous noise ordinance. We have several dogs in our neighborhood who are out for hours and hours at a time and will bark constantly for more than 30 minutes to an hour. Despite our kind words and requests to take the dogs in, the owners continue to allow the dogs to bark. We have spoken with Sandy at Codes, providing the address of the owners/dogs, no avail. How will the township handle this issue, as it is a daily problem now that summer has arrived? Ms. Tealy-Coles, do we want to perhaps I guess we can address it now, or maybe have Mr. Ennis and Sandy, look into this and see if there's anything additional that can be done?
Sure. I mean, just as a rule of thumb, I haven't had this issue as a complaint in a while, but typically what a resident needs to do is if they do observe or hear a dog barking for a certain period of time, I would need to check our ordinances, but just, it's if the dog is barking consistently for say 20 minutes, that's when you make the complaint, and you can make the complaint to the police department.
Okay. So I would say to the Colemans that in the future, if there is a dog that's barking for
Well, could I interrupt? Just how about if I get back to them with the
Sure.
specifics?
Even better. Thank you. Okay, number 3, a next door neighbor of ours has security lights on the front of her home. The lights are motion activated. The lights have no side guard, and therefore each time the light is activated by a car, walker, animal, or the resident herself, the light goes on and lights up our bedroom despite our having hung light filtering drapes. Their lights intrude on our bedroom up to 10 to 12 times a night. What are the regulations regarding these security lights? And if we have none, what will we do to correct that? If you want to have
I'd have to look into that one and we'll get back to her on that.
Okay. Number 4, the same neighbor has multiple cameras around her home with feed to her personal computer and phone. One of the cameras it was on her shed and captured our back patio. I told her to remove it, and she removed and repositioned it closer to the home and closer to our yard. Her camera angles capture ongoing video of our home, our patio, our yard. She has commented on our activity once that could only have been seen via camera since she was not outside her home. This is voyeurism. What code or law is there that protects our privacy? What steps can we take against this voyeurism? Same, maybe look at that as well. Number 5, what action by the township maintenance staff has been taken to take care of the 2 to 3 foot high weeds at concrete lane separators at the intersections of Route 413 and Route 1? For example, these are unsightly and need to be addressed. Our area is beginning to look like the ghetto. Mr. Gardenmeyer, do you have any comment about maintenance of weeds on the concrete separators on 413 and Route 1?
Unfortunately, they are not owned by the township.
State
They are owned by PennDOT. You know, I mean, that's the decision that the board would have to make if they want to spend our time to go out there and, you know, clean it up or do whatever. But PennDOT owns those cartways or right-of-ways, whatever you want to call them.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Item 6, there are 2 individuals in Highland Park around Hale Road that are running a business out of their home with 5 or more large work trucks parked on the street outside of others' homes every day. How may we have the township check on the validity of this home business and these parking arrangements? And what do we have to do to be sure that a neighbor around the area has permits to build concrete slab on the easement? Again, this is something that we can have Sandy look into. Okay. So, and then it says, thank you for your input. We'll be listening to the broadcast this evening and phone in addition to any interaction. When do you anticipate having these meetings open to the public again with everyone wearing a mask? Good question. We tried the last meeting to do a hybrid version with some of us in the building, some of us at home. But then obviously the governor increased restrictions in light of recent increases of COVID-19 cases. So we're back to going all virtual. You know, your guess is as good as mine as to when we will all be back together in the township building. Hopefully sometime soon, but obviously circumstances will dictate when we are able to do that. So thank you to the Colemans. Number of issues, we will absolutely have township staff look into them and get back to you directly and see if we can help you with some or all of these things. That is all I'm seeing in terms of public comment. I'll just wait a moment and make sure nothing else has come in while I was going through those. I don't see any additional ones. So with that, I'm going to move on to other business. Ms. Strauss.
Nothing, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Quirple.
Sorry, technical difficulties. I just wanted to say, as I go around the township, it's nice to see the businesses opening up. I'm seeing a lot of tents with residents eating outside. I just want to remind everybody to stay vigilant about using social distancing and using masks when you're out in public, and you know, trying to just make sure you're still taking heed of the precautions so we can continue to move forward and have these businesses stay open. And that's all. Everybody stay safe.
Thank you. Mr. Tosti.
Just to piggyback off what Ms. Purple said, please wear your mask. If everybody cooperates, these businesses and this area can open up a lot faster. So thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Payne.
Nothing further to add to what Dawn and Tom had stated.
Thank you. Ms. Tioli-Cools.
Nothing, thank you.
Mr. Esposito.
Thanks, Mr. Cusack. The only thing I wanted to say was to make an announcement that the board did hold an executive session prior to tonight's meeting to discuss some personnel and real estate matters.
Thank you. I forgot.
No
Appreciate it.
problem.
Mr. Kessler.
Nothing further to add this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. And I have nothing further. Thank you, everybody. Everybody stay safe and have a great night. Is there a motion to adjourn? Mr. Tosti.
Second.
Motion.